it does feed into this overarching narrative that you're seeing nationally, with the FBI seizing ballots in Fulton County, demanding election records from Maricopa County, Arizona, the DOJ demanding from states their voter rolls. So this feeds into a narrative where Republicans can say, well, now we're going to expose Democrats for the cheaters that they are, and Democrats can say, oh, see, it's just the Republicans, they're just trying to fuel this narrative that elections are rigged.
I couldn't put I was so busy for 3 weeks, I couldn't participate in my democracy, and my ballot's not going to be counted because I waited for the very last minute when for over 200 years I had to go get up, wait in line, sit in a polling location, and participate. That's what I don't understand. Why do we think that the democracy doesn't require any work anymore?
That's the same reason why the stock trading ban doesn't get passed, the same reason why, we don't have term limits, the same reason why we have a totally dysfunctional government, because it's designed not to cooperate and pay its own government workers. What is going on?
Welcome back, everybody, the Independent Voter Podcast. We're just going to jump right into it today. We got the first thing we're going to talk about, Chad Bianco, sheriff from Riverside, been trading the first place spot for California governor in that divided field with Steve Hilton. And now he's out there. He seized a bunch of ballots. He seized a bunch of ballots in Riverside.
Not just a bunch. Can we just tell everybody?
Yeah, go for it.
He seized 650,000 ballots from the November 2025 election.
So what do you think? Basically the entire vote total of Proposition 50 in Riverside County.
Well, I mean, Proposition 50 wasn't exactly a close race.
No, it wasn't.
So is this, what is it? There's something legit going on here? Or is this a election stunt so that he can battle it out with Steve Hilton for those Republican votes?
So, I mean, we published a story about this on IVN, and my article on it just stuck with basically the facts. Here's what happens. Here's why Chad Bianco started this investigation. It's based off this group of Riverside County residents who decided to do their own audit, and they found in their own little whatever, in their investigation or research, that they saw that there was 45,000 excess votes, which means there were 45,000 more votes counted than actually cast. But the registrar of voters came out and disputed this claim and said, actually the discrepancy is closer to 100, which is a big gap between 100 and 45,000.
But, 100's still bad, right? I mean,
So, it still would be good for the registrar of voters to account for why was there this 100. But he did explain to the county board of supervisors that here's how this group, the Riverside election integrity team, figured this 45,000. Here's what they looked at incorrectly. Here's what they were missing in their counts. The fact that they were using raw data from the election administrators, which happened before ballots were processed. So this didn't include provisional ballots. It didn't include confidential votes. It didn't include
no kidding.
Mail-in ballots that need to be cured for a variety of reasons. So they explained all of this in a presentation, and Chad Bianco still said, well, you know what, this other group says that there's this 45,000 vote disparity, so we're going to seize the ballots and count them for ourselves.
So he's the sheriff, right? So Chad Bianco, he's the sheriff of Riverside County. So I guess because he's in law enforcement there, that he has the authority to seize ballots from an election?
I mean, I guess so. I mean, I
know he's running for governor, right? He's actually in first place in the most recent IVN
swapping
poll.
First. Yeah, and IVN's poll and a few others, and some polls show Steve Hilton's in first, and right. So my take is that maybe there's some things going on at the margins, but it's an opportunity to raise the profile. I mean, every national news, we're talking about it right now, right?
Yeah, exactly. Right. Well, because it's not an everyday thing, Chad, where sheriffs go around seizing ballots.
Well, I mean, but
it's like, I know they just did it. The FBI just seized ballots in Fulton County, Georgia, but it's not normal for, the sheriff. You would think, he would be doing something about fentanyl.
Well, and this is why the national press is picking this up, because it does feed into this overarching narrative that you're seeing nationally, with the FBI seizing ballots in Fulton County, demanding election records from Maricopa County, Arizona, the DOJ demanding from states their voter rolls. So this feeds into a narrative where Republicans can say, well, now we're going to expose Democrats for the cheaters that they are. And Democrats can say, oh, see, it's just the Republicans. They're just trying to fuel this narrative that elections are rigged, and they're relying on all this unsubstantiated claims to deny election results, so they can cheat. It's basically both sides just accusing each other of cheating at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what Eric Swalwell said. You have quoted him in your article. He said the only way MAGA knows how to win is by cheating. Yeah. And we know that from the president's State of the Union address that he said the exact same thing about the Dems.
Yeah, and then Bianco replied to Swalwell. Swalwell also running for governor, also a top contender for one of the top 2 spots, based on polling, and recent polls show that he could be rising. There isn't consistency in that yet, but that he could be breaking out in the Democratic field, right? Bianco replied saying, well, your AG is the one trying to block me from doing my investigation. So yeah, it's all this, you're cheating. No, you're cheating. Yeah.
And, it's to sow distrust, you think, in the election that's coming up in California? Or is it just to have Swalwell and Bianco have something to fight about that gets them into the national news and gets their name recognition up?
I mean,
and they're kind of like sacrificing all of the integrity that we feel about our, they're sacrificing the sacredness of our elections.
Well,
in a way.
Mean, at the same time, going to our next topic, I mean, it relates. I mean, California has universal mail-in ballot. We have legalized ballot harvesting, right, which is very unique. I mean, it wasn't that long ago. You had, Democratic presidents stood up and said, ballot harvesting there's too much cause for concern for fraud and stuff. And then they legalized it in California. So whether it's created 445,000 phantom ballots and stuff is a totally
in
another
one
issue,
county,
right? Is a totally another issue, right? But at the same time, we have the Supreme Court of the United States is now hearing a case that it's related, right?
That's right. Okay, on Monday.
Basically, the question is can you just if election day is on day X, can you accept a ballot on day X plus 1, X plus 2, X plus 3 because it was put in the mail, right? I think it's a legitimate question. What happened?
And also remember, they're messing around with the postmarks, you guys. Mm-hmm. Remember the U.S. Postal Service? They said now if you drop off your ballot at the post office on the day of the election, you can't be expected, or any piece of mail for that matter, you can't expect that it will get a postmark on that day, which is totally crazy.
Well, yeah, and they've changed the rules on that.
To be fair, this is not election specific. I just had something that was a trusted, business partner mailed last week. It was postmarked 4 days after he said he put it in the mail, right? So it's not just election specific.
No.
That's a post office issue, but it does relate to how can you trust the election then if that's the standard operating procedure for the United States Postal Service, and then you're saying, okay, well, we're going to accept ballots that are postmarked this date, received this date, that date. And meanwhile,
they have to have a date, right, Chad? I mean, let's just look at the brass tacks. So I was looking at top 2 primary in California. I think that the date of the primary is the 2nd of June of 2026.
I think it's the 6th.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, we got to get that straight. But I think it's wrong in our articles then. Great. And that I think it's 7 days later that it has to be received by, not the postmark, but it needs to be received by the office in order to count the vote. But this Supreme Court decision, if it comes down the way it sort of seems like based on the oral arguments on Monday, it seems like they're going to say if your ballot's not there by the day, then your ballot won't count.
All right.
And that's going to be crazy, right?
Let me be that person that'll be attacked as being a right-wing crazy guy for making this argument. Okay, it wasn't that long ago that you had to go to the polls, and vote, right? It was your civic duty, go to the precinct and vote. Now, you get a ballot in the mail. Every single person gets a ballot in the mail a month before the election in California. You have an entire month to drop it off, to fill it out, to postmark it. And we're saying, well, no. I mean, these people who waited for the last minute, something put on their table, they don't take any effort to spend that entire month, one night, filling out their ballot, right? And we're supposed to make these special, everybody, the world's supposed to be put on hold, not know who's going to be the next governor, not know who's going to be the next assembly member. We all have to wait so that we can count ballots for another 7 days because somebody couldn't take the time in their day for the month they had the ballot on their thing. So, all right, how do you respond to that?
Well, and then you can even add on to that in California it takes them like 2 months to count all the ballots anyway. It's a very slow process.
Everywhere it does. It takes
ballots.
a very long time. And the only reason why we know who won on election day or who didn't win on election day is because the Associated Press and others, press organizations make deals and they call their reporters call in and the counties give them the results. That's the only way that we know.
Yeah, we got to rely on fake news.
Brother. I mean, so then you're really like, I think it's more important is what I want to say. I think it's more important that all the votes get counted than if they're there on a specific date. I mean, take a specific date, but a week after, 3 days after, 4 days after.
Well, I think that's where the crux of the Supreme Court argument is like, okay, well, what's that date? Like, what is that time when it's too early to receive a ballot? What's that time when it's too late to receive a ballot, right?
But mostly, isn't it supposed to be that the states decide what the rules of their elections are?
I mean, ultimately,
this
this comes down to the state's ability and the state's rights under the U.S. Constitution to set their own election rules. There are a lot of states that have this type of leniency, period. Republican and Democratic states alike allow you to postmark a ballot before election day and it be counted like 2 or 3 days after. I know Alaska, I was reading an article the other day about how Alaska has this rule and that may go away if the Supreme Court rules that, you can't do this, right?
So the one crazy
it's
thing,
more
though, about
complicated than that because we're talking about time, place, manner of state elections, but interwoven in all this is that most states pair their elections for natural reasons and cost reasons with federal elections that are governed by it, right? And then you have, okay, how do you define election day, right? That's not in the Constitution, how you define election day. If election day is June 6th, it's not June 9th, right? It's not a different date. So it's, when I if I'm doing a business deal, I can do deals all the time. It's like when you received it. Well, if you received it 4 days after my contract says, that's late. Now you owe me a late fee. Can you turn in your rent 10 days after and say, oh, well, I put it in the post office and then the post office marked it 3 days later and then you received it? No, you get charged a late fee for your rent. So why is it different when we're talking about our election process?
Because it's to give somebody. First of all, if you mail your ballot in California by June 2nd, and you do get a June 2nd postmark, which is the date of the primary election, and it's postmarked that date, but it doesn't arrive till a week later, is that the voter's fault? Did the voter really have to? They've been sent this mail-in ballot, so they have like every
on their desk for a month.
I mean, great. I think it would be. But also, maybe they put it in 4 days before and it doesn't get postmarked because the post office, they've been sent a mail-in ballot with the sort of encouragement to mail the ballot back.
Yeah.
So if you're telling them you got this ballot through the mail, but you can't trust mailing it back through the mail, it's not going to count.
Why don't they just say if you're going to mail it back?
People won't even put it in or even try.
Why don't they just say,
oh, God, I forgot. Like, is that the first time you ever forgot something to mail?
Yeah, but if you're the Supreme Court, why wouldn't you tell the state, if that's the way you want it, why don't you tell voters, put a big red thing that says, warning, if you want to mail this back, make sure it's mailed by 7 days before the election, right? Why? And if you're going to be after that, oh my gosh, go drop it off, right?
I just feel like when you're talking about places like Alaska or Maine, and, in Alaska, for example, 80% of the ballots are returned by mail. It's pretty far distances. It just seems like that you're really disenfranchising a whole bunch of people if you don't set a date at least a few days after the election and have it still count.
I've ridden the train from Anchorage to Fairbanks, okay? And there's people that live in literally the middle of nowhere, but you can flag down that train. It's the only train in the United States where if somebody comes and raises their hand in the middle of nowhere, the train has to stop. So, Kara, even those people could know a week before the election, I will make the train stop and hand somebody my ballot.
I totally.
Well, no, and
it
this
reminds me
is
of.
part, yeah, this is part of the discussion that, especially when they made these rule changes with the USPS, when they cut down on the processing centers, was that now states have to, it's on them. You should do everything you can to educate voters and tell voters, hey, we're going to send you this ballot, but you probably should send it in 2 weeks ahead of time, right? If we're going to send it to you a month before the election.
Also, by the way,
you should
the
get it in.
election's not over 2 weeks ahead of time. So something could happen in those 2 weeks also that changes your mind about how you're going to vote. And, it's kind of nuts what you guys are saying, that it should be cut off exactly at the date, because
If I
something
mail
can
it
happen in the
if I
weekend
mail
before
it
an
in the day,
election.
so if I mail it in the day I get it, well, then on your theory, I should be able to ask for it back and redo my vote. Something changed.
No,
Something changed.
That's
Well,
why
and I'm
ranked
not-
choice voting.
and-
That's why ranked
and-
choice voting
yeah.
is so awesome, I want to say, because
Yeah.
basically,
And
you
I'm
can-
not saying it should be cut off on a date. I actually don't think there's a problem with these laws that allow for a low grace period. But I do think that it is on the states to say that if you want to make sure that your ballot is guaranteed to count, then you need to send it in and give yourself a bigger window than just a day.
You always have the option to do what we did for hundreds of years, which is go to a polling place, and now we have ballot drop boxes all over the place. Like, you always have that option. You don't have to mail it. It's
No,
something.
but like
it's
doesn't the entire state of Washington
what a
vote
first world
entirely by
problem
mail?
to have. Like the definition of a first world problem. Oh my gosh, my ballot's sent to me. All I got to do is open up my envelope, fill it out, and like put a postmark on it back, and I get to participate in the democratic process, right? You have people all over the world who aren't even allowed to vote. Or they have a completely fake system. They're living in North Korea, and we're sitting here complaining that, oh my gosh, I don't get to wait until the very last day to fill it out and put it in my mailbox with a postage already paid for by my government, right? When I could have.
I didn't know that. Is it really postage
yes,
paid?
it's
Wow.
prepaid postage too.
Wow.
Right?
Okay.
So-
okay.
First
A
world
lot of
problem.
encouragement.
And then we sit here and go, oh my God, I couldn't put I was so busy for 3 weeks. I couldn't participate in my democracy, and my ballot's not going to be counted because I waited for the very last minute when for over 200 years, I had to go get up, wait in line, sit in a polling location and participate. That's what I don't understand. Why do we think that the democracy doesn't require any work anymore?
Yeah. I mean, I just feel like if you live in Alaska in the middle of nowhere, you shouldn't have to go stop the train. And a grace period is just a grace period. And we have grace periods all over the place. And so why not have a grace period when it comes to this and make sure that it's enforced? It is very problematic with the post office not being a reliable arbiter of the date that something was mailed anymore, right? That's like a structural problem that makes this, it's the underpinnings that kind of make this really not work.
Fair enough.
Fair enough.
I love
Fair
playing
enough.
devil's advocate.
No kidding. No kidding.
All right. Now, well, and then, hey, here's something we might be able to rejoice around. We got ranked choice voting is bubbling up in Los Angeles. Even the Charter Review Commission recommended it. I mean, this is a massive county, right? They have 15 council members for like 5 bajillion people. And the charter basically said, look, we have 2 recommendations. You should have more council members, so they're representing less people individually. And 2, you should implement ranked choice voting, right? So that's a very interesting development. What do you think is going to happen there?
I mean, I don't know. It kind of depends on if the politicians they really mean it. I mean, it's obviously incredibly popular. It's obviously could be used, very judiciously, especially in a race where they've got multiple candidates running. But maybe it's just at this point a political stunt. I'm not sure, sort of designed to placate people more than it's like a real. I mean, there's definitely some people who are leading the charge in Los Angeles who've been working on it for a long time. So these are not sort of fair weather ranked choice voting advocates by any stretch of the imagination. But, you're still up against a powerful structure that's in place in Los Angeles, right? There's still
Right.
the powers that be.
And then, right,
just like we've talked about this before, ranked choice voting can mean a lot of things for a lot of different people. I mean, you look ranked choice voting in New York. What did they do? They made it, okay, we'll take ranked choice voting, but we have closed primaries. So, hey, why don't we just do it in the primary? Let's forget about the general election when most people are voting, right? Not to say that it wasn't an advancement, but that's the reality.
Well, right, because what we really need to say is that first past the post voting, this, pick one and pray voting is the worst of all. So top two is much better than that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what they have. And this would change if the Charter Review Commission has its way. And the council will vote, I guess, on what the Charter Review Commission has recommended.
Right.
Well,
but I'm just
yeah,
saying
and-
it's
yeah.
easy to say we're for some kind of ranked choice voting. It's harder to get a coalition to say, let's do it like this, right? Because the moment they put together a solution, now the divisions will start developing within all the people who want to advance ranked choice voting.
And LA is in a different position than New York City because LA does nonpartisan primaries as opposed to New York City that does the closed primaries.
Correct.
Like, and you look at
Very
it
cool.
and say, like in Illinois, after last week's primary elections, people are talking about ranked choice voting because we had so many congressional races that had Democratic primaries with large candidate fields that led to so many candidates getting elected because there's no runoffs here, getting elected with 30% or less of the vote, or getting the nomination with 30% or less of the vote, which in some cases, like in my district, that means, the seat's so safe for Democrats that they just went outright. But so like a group like Fair Vote does a poll, shows that 2/3 of voters, or at least primary voters, said that they'd be open for ranked choice voting. But then you include the well, what if we just did it for the primaries? And if you give the establishment, if you give the party in control the option, they're going to do fine. If you want ranked choice voting, we're just going to do in these closed primary elections where if you want to participate, you have to declare a party affiliation. You don't register by party here, but you do have to declare it. And your eligibility can be challenged if somehow someone doesn't believe that you are a Democrat or a Republican right here. It does really, I think the one thing that LA does have over these other systems is it's a nonpartisan primary. And so you don't have to worry about that.
Yep. It's sort of wonderful if they would. I guess there's 3 people in the race right now that are, there's many, many people, but there's a top 3 in LA. One of them is the incumbent mayor, and one of them is this guy called Spencer Pratt. Do you guys know who that is?
He's an actor.
Yeah, he's like a famous actor who's definitely, making his name for himself around the Palisades fires.
Right.
Fighting against what he sees as corruption. It's a pretty salient issue, I would imagine, in the race. And then Karen Bass, the mayor, is getting challenged by a city councilwoman who's a member of her same political party, who's also a Democrat. So it'll be an interesting race to watch.
It's interesting, but I think one of the things we talk about ranked choice voting is, okay, it gives people more options, true. But another advantage of it is what we don't discuss as much is like when we passed Measure K in San Diego and we made sure people couldn't actually get elected in the primary, the argument we made, which we stand by today, is that democracy functions best. Okay, Republicans, representation also functions best when the most people participate, which is the general election, right? There's more than, California, it's more than double. Some states, it's like, there's like 10% participate in primary. So it's like 6, 7, 8 times the number of people vote in general elections, right? And that's really the point, is that we have these critical stages where the field's being narrowed artificially at a time when most people aren't paying attention. Like crazy people like us that wake up and do podcasts about politics are paying attention, but we're not representative of the general election. We're not even close to representative of the general electorate. So I don't know. I was just throwing it out there, but something that is more interest to the average person, I think, would be that post we put on Facebook. And I think we framed it, there's like 10 million views on it, but we framed it as just say, look, is Donald Trump, when he had the prime minister of Japan sitting right next to him, is Donald Trump the only person that would make a Pearl Harbor joke while sitting next to the prime minister of Japan?
In the Oval Office. And the look on her face, Ethan was able to capture the look on the prime minister's face as Trump said what he said about surprise.
I think it just blew her mind.
One of the posts in my social feeds that stood out was someone saying you could see the soul leave her body as he was saying that. Like,
Yeah. Okay. So,
It
but
was
those
just
in the
for
left
anybody who
part-
hasn't
okay.
seen it. It was like the opposite of a good poker
Right.
face.
So people who aren't paying attention, they see that and they go, wow, that's just awful, which I'm not arguing. I'm not suggesting that that's maybe what a presidential type thing should say. However, this isn't actually, this is like a prime minister that just won on a Trump message and talks about how she loves Donald Trump, right? So it's actually a very friendly ally, somebody who before and after has expressed her appreciation and satisfaction with Trump being in office, right? Following his policies there. So isn't there an argument to be made that it's actually he has such a good relationship with some of these folks that he can make jokes like this and know that they're going to still be friends?
I guess. I mean, the number of people who watched it on our Instagram kind of blows my mind. Over 10 million people in 24 hours saw that little clip that we made. I think that what we said is Trump the only one who's willing to say things that other people are thinking? Is he the only one who's willing to say them out loud, what other people are thinking? Do you know, like that seems like with the president that sometimes he just says like exactly what's on he doesn't think before he speaks.
But isn't
Or
that
maybe
what,
he does. Maybe he does.
But isn't that why, like, we can see how some people just hate him so, well, oh my gosh, how could you say something like, but like, isn't that why maybe some people love him so much? Because in this manufactured world of politics where most people are running to their pollsters, running to their consultants, what should I say? How do I gin people up? Trump just says, I'm just going to say whatever. I mean, I know I'm going to, say things that'll make people's jaw drop, and every consultant or pollster would assure that this would be the death of my presidency and campaign, but I'll just say it because that's what I'm thinking right now. That's
how he's fueled. That's
well, I
how
mean,
he's fueled.
I remember in 2016 when you saw a lot of independent voters and a lot of other voters who support Trump saying, I like him because he says things for how they are, right? And that very point that he speaks his mind, but I do believe, if you are the sitting
like with
president
Robert
of the United
Mueller,
States.
did you see what he said about that? Sorry to interrupt you, Sean. I just was thinking, like, he said when he heard that Robert Mueller, who's like a combat veteran, Purple Heart winner, Bronze Star winner, served his country. He said when it was announced that he died, he said, "Good, I'm glad he's dead."
Yeah, I'm not going to go and do the argumentation for that one. I don't think it's appropriate. And even if he did have legitimate grievances with the guy, obviously celebrating death of anybody probably is not a good idea. But
he won't put the flags at half-mast like he wouldn't for John McCain.
Okay, so that's a different issue. Okay, maybe he doesn't put the flag at half-mast, but at least articulate the reasons why you have a division with them, but you don't have to celebrate the death. Anyways, but
see, there is a congressman who was willing to break ranks with Donald Trump, a Republican congressman called Kevin Kiley, who...
Well, he's not a Republican. He's an independent now.
Well, as of what day? March the 9th, he walked into the clerk of the United States House of Representatives and had it changed on the official roster. And he is now the sole independent member of the House of Representatives of the United States of America. He's one of 435. He narrowed the Republican majority with that move to 217 Republicans to 214 Dems. He's saying he's still going to caucus with the Republicans, but he joins a very select small group of people who have ever done this. And so we break that down in Independent Voter News this week.
Right, which isn't unusual. You got Angus King and Bernie Sanders, who are independents, but they caucus with the Democrats in the Senate, right? But I'd like to point out that although independents are 45% of the electorate, and we're moving up, have 0.25% of the United States Congress. So go Kevin Kiley.
0.25. All right. That's better than 0.00. But what precipitated Kiley's move was that the gerrymandering that went on in California as a result of Prop 50, right? So the 3rd Congressional District and the 6th Congressional District have completely gotten redrawn. So half of the 6th Congressional District that Kiley is now deciding to run in is gone. half those voters are gone. So
which is just goes to showing how this gerrymandering battle is so self-defeating to when you're talking about the better representation. I mean, the person that's getting targeted is probably the most independent, moderate, members of Congress is the one that's targeted, and they're taken out his district, right?
They're taken out his district.
Why? Because he registered as a Republican, right? It's not in...
Well, he's been a reliable vote 98% of the time voting with Trump, so even if he says he's an independent. Now, look, I was able to look through his record and find some pretty moderate votes in there and some bipartisan stuff in his record. But you got to believe that 5 Democrats and 2 Republicans competing in this nonpartisan top 2 primary in June in the 6th Congressional District of California is going to be a super interesting race. And that I bet that the general election is going to be even more interesting because there are more than 100,000 no party preference voters in this particular district that he has decided to run in. So the incumbent has moved over to the 3rd. Kiley's going to run in the 6th. So it's technically an open seat. Kiley's got more than $2 million, which is a huge cash advantage over the Democrats in the race. And he's running on this new kind of I'm an independent message because the 2-party system is broken. So we know for sure he's got a super potent message. It's just, are people going to believe him, right?
Yeah. That's the trouble. People are going to say, okay, you just did this for political purposes, right? Are they right? Maybe. Are they wrong? Maybe. I don't know. But
that's one of the questions that I tried to ask in the article.
And like not all no party preference voters are just going to vote for someone because they have a hard I next to their name, or a capital I next to their name.
Well, in California, they have NPP next to their name. No party preference.
Right. Well, anyway, yeah. So, independent voters don't just vote for someone just because they're an independent candidate, right? It often comes down to the messaging of the candidate themselves and whether or not they think that this switch is genuine, right? Whether or not they think that Kiley does want to be independent of the 2 parties, right? By re-registering no party preference and kind of forge his own path and represent the district based on the district's values as opposed to the party's values. So
So I have an unrelated question. Has ICE solved the TSA problem?
God, I mean, listen, these people are now in 35th, 36th day of not getting. How many weeks have they not gotten paid?
Yeah.
I mean, they're going on their 2nd paycheck. So, yeah.
I mean, as in usual fashion.
On missing their 2nd paycheck. These are people, they have mortgages. They have house payments, rent payments, those checks are not in the mail and they're expected to keep going to work. And I read that 400 of them have now quit. And so the ICE agents are going to America's airports, but they're not going to do anything that they're not qualified to do.
Right.
I saw
so they're not actually, and that's the thing, they're not actually doing a lot of the TSA work because they aren't trained to do the TSA work. They're not qualified to do the TSA work. So they're not in those, they're there monitoring, I guess, and making sure nothing happens for security purposes. But nothing has changed with the lines. The lines are just getting longer because more TSA agents are quitting, right? They're seeking out jobs that will actually pay them. And so like I'm seeing posts on my social feed about people in airports waiting 6-7 hours.
I can't believe it. That's a
crazy.
Long time to be in it.
Before it was, okay, if you want to get through TSA, arrive earlier than you want. Like arrive, 3-4 hours early just to make sure. Now you are waiting in line for that in a lot of these major hubs. So it's crazy.
It is. It is. And, the thing is about TSA, okay, so there's a deal that is on the table in the United States Senate to pay those TSA agents. And the head of the Republican Party, Senator Thune, he's for it. Senator Cruz is for it. They have the Republican support and the Democratic support for reopening, or not for reopening, but for starting to pay the agents. And also, did you guys see that Elon Musk actually offered to personally make the payroll of all the TSA agents to get it handled, just without the government? But the deal is that there's a deal on the table to do it, and the president won't take the deal from his own Republican Party, who has put this together. And what he's saying is he doesn't want to pass the SAVE Act. I mean, until they pass the SAVE Act, he's not getting on board with anything.
Yeah, I mean, and this really gets back to the whole conversation about what he said with the Japanese prime minister and whether or not, it's whether or not presidents should have some sort of filter. Presidents should also just be, I think, a bit more cognizant of how the political calculuses work in DC, right? Like you certainly want someone to be independent minded, but at the end of the day, you kind of have to play the game too. And like, if you aren't going to go along with this right now, Trump is relying on the SAVE Act, right? He wants the SAVE Act. He thinks if they keep polling out, it's going to end up hurting the Democrats. Meanwhile, the Democrats on the other side are posting tweets and posts about how, hey, we've offered these bills every single day for the last week to fund TSA, and Republicans have said no. So it's all this back and forth, just chess playing by both sides.
That's the same reason why the stock trading ban doesn't get passed. The same reason why we don't have term limits. The same reason why we have a totally dysfunctional government, because it's designed not to cooperate and pay its own government workers. Like, what is going on? Well, I did see a cool story this week. The last thing I wanted to talk to you guys about is this woman called Paige Cognetti. She is running in Pennsylvania. She's a Democrat. And she's running against this guy called Rob Bresnahan. And because he promised to spend his, time when he ran in 2024, he said, I'm not going to do anything else except for get the stock trading ban passed. And at the end of his freshman year in Congress, he became one of Congress's most prolific traders. He was fifth in the number of trades as of the end of 2025. And his trades seem to have benefited some of his congressional votes, according to the New York Times. And she is running on this slogan, Paige Cognetti, as Paige against the machine, which, shout out Rage Against the Machine from Orange County, California. She's the mayor of Scranton, and she's pretty scrappy, and running against corruption and running kind of against the two-party system, which is pretty cool, which is why her unofficial slogan is Paige Against the Machine, a play on that band's name. Have you guys heard about her?
No, not till now.
Yeah.
I don't know how much, but that's kind of an interesting story. He runs against the top stock ban and becomes one of the biggest stock traders. So sounds like Washington, D.C. to me. I don't know. I think we're kind of nearing the end of the episode here this week on Independent Voter Project. If you haven't already, subscribe to the podcast. Check us out on YouTube. Come to the news website, ivn.us, and subscribe to our newsletter. And then, of course, follow us on Facebook and Instagram, where, we keep getting these reels that are getting millions of viewers, and you see the numbers going up thanks to absent Ethan.
But the great thing about that is that when people come and see us, they also are learning about all the different, ranked choice voting reforms and top 5 reforms that we're interested in at Independent Voter News and Independent Voter Network.
Like I said, follow along, and look, you're going to hear things on the show. You probably heard things today that you don't like, you don't agree with, or you hear my diatribe, playing devil's advocate on some stuff and everything. And like, that is the spirit of the show and the news platform, is that like we should stop taking differences of opinion as reasons to stop the conversation. We all have different opinions. We're not unbiased. I hate it when people say, oh, we're unbiased. Nobody's unbiased.
Right.
We're all like, the only way you can create is unbiased is in the aggregate, right? And we all have difference of opinions. If we respect each other and have honest conversations, I think we can get to better solutions. So,
and try to stick to the facts, try to stick to the facts and like
are
point out the hyperbole
too.
and really point out the dysfunction of the system, and that there is a solution to all of this. Right? There are solutions that can make this better.
And we'll steadily get there. So follow along, join us, send us an email, put what you're thinking in the comments, reach out, disagree with us. That's what I like disagreements the best, right? Because it gives you an opportunity to find out, something you don't already know. So join us again next week on Independent Voter. Visit the website. Thanks for coming. We appreciate everybody who listens to us every week. And like I said, don't be afraid to reach out. Thanks, everybody.
Bye, Chad.
Ciao.
Bye, Sean.
Bye.
This is the Independent Voter Podcast, sponsored by the Independent Voter Project and produced by OLAS Media. Remember, you can always find the Independent Voter Podcast or the How It Really Works series at ivn.us. Follow and subscribe at olasmedia.com.
Media.